my boss called me in and said to me, Donna, everybody's being asked to name a disaster coordinator for the diocese. And she said, would you be our disaster coordinator? Because what are the chances of Jackson, Mississippi ever having a disaster? And of course, August 29th, 2005, we all learned what the chances were that Jackson, Mississippi would be affected by a disaster. When Katrina hit, we had people coming to the building, just walking in. What do I do? People panic, confused, distraught. We had a woman whose family was in New Orleans, and she didn't know what had happened to them. And she was getting calls from her sister, who was one of those who waited on the bridge every day until she could be rescued. She is now in counseling because as she was there waiting, saw the dead bodies floating past her and the dead bodies of children. I went down to Biloxi and shortly after that and took a tour and just could barely look at everything. I mean, the lump in my throat, and I could cry even now. There would be tents in these yards of people who were afraid to leave all their belongings, so they were sleeping outside amidst all this damp. I mean, it had to be germ infested. Immediately after Katrina happened and the first phone calls I was receiving, they were phone calls from Catholic parishes all across the nation. And they were saying to us, we're a parish in Connecticut, we're a parish in California, what can we do, what can we do? And they started immediately to send supplies down. So at one point, I just broke down and cried in the office because I said to the volunteer who was with me, if I ever wondered what church was, this is now my definition. I think that Katrina turned lives absolutely upside down. People will never again be the same. They are in the midst of a culture of grief. And many of them tell us that the biggest loss is not their house, not their job, but the loss of their church community, the loss of the connection. We had a Mardi Gras party for them and had a coffin, and they could put into the coffin what was most devastating. And then we had one of those parades like they have and paraded down downtown Jackson and buried the coffin, buried their fears and hoped to rise with new hope and resurrection. I can get angry with FEMA and Red Cross as much as I want, and there were lots of problems in that time. Actually, I've forgotten about all that because the lives of the people and their example and trust have been just overwhelmingly beautiful for me.